should hear the teaching, not the teacher. And there is no perfect person.
Yes.
But the point is that what Vedanta says is you're the perfect person. You have to, the whole point here is to discover the perfect person that you are. And the perfect person doesn't mean you're jiva. All jivas are flawed.
Yeah.
The great saints and the sinners are all the same. So as long as like your teacher doesn't demand anything of you, except that you keep your mind on the self. And well, what we do here is want to turn you into your own guru.
Oh, that's right.
See? Now, that means what? To get moksha, you're going to have to discriminate the self from the not-self. It doesn't matter how perfect the teaching is or how perfect the guru is, it's how perfect you are in keeping your mind, keeping your discrimination clear. So, in order to discriminate properly, you need to understand what the self is and what the not-self is. You need very clarity on that. So you need a guru only in the beginning stages. Once you've heard the teaching, then you become the guru. That's our idea. I don't have disciples. Everybody's a disciple of Vedanta. I personally don't have any disciples. I don't think of myself as a guru except when I sit here and put my guru hat on. When I get off the chair, I take my guru hat off. Then you're just dealing with a normal person.
Because you know what I'm talking about. In India particularly, there is such blind guru worship.
Oh, yeah.
Everything about the guru is perfect, and it's just in a very madness.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, but if you look at, say, the Bhagavad Gita, now what's the relationship? They're called bhavas. What is the bhava, or the emotional, mental relationship that the guru and the disciple? Friendship. Sakya bhava. Now, anytime you don't find, that's a perfect relationship for transferring knowledge, because their friends don't consider themselves to be one superior to the other. If you take the most common bhava, and this is basically in every religion, and even sometimes in Vedanta, but very, very rarely, is the father-son or mother-daughter. That's a psychological pattern that's built into everybody. Everybody thinks themselves as the daughter or the son of a mother or father. Now, in that kind of a relationship, what do you have? You have dependence. You have total dependence, and a submissiveness. You have to be submissive, and they know better. Mom knows better, Pop knows better. It isn't right if it's not. I had this problem with my father sometimes. I'd say something was rational, and I'd say, "Well, I don't think this is right." I said, "Why should I do that?" He said, "Because I said so." Because I said so. Now, you see this pattern in not just India. All over here in the West, it's universal, because that inner child has never turned into an inner adult. Now, in Arjuna's case, Arjuna's an adult. In fact, when you see in the conversation he has with Krishna, he teases Krishna a little bit, and Krishna teases him. And there's a subconscious, if you understand the Sanskrit, the way they use words, and the terms they use to refer to each other indicate that they're on equal footing. And in fact, they have a saying in the Bhakti tradition. It's called Bhakta Bhaktiman, and it means that the Lord or the Guru is the devotee of the disciple.
Yes.
Bhakta Bhaktiman. Now, and you see that in Krishna's case, because Arjuna's standing up above Krishna, And Krishna is down below Arjuna. And Arjuna is giving him orders. Arjuna is telling him, do this, do that, and so forth and so on. Huh? Now that's pretty weird, isn't it? Huh? He's a guru. He says, I'm not going to fight. Well, so the one so he said, I'm not going to fight here. So what do you want me to do? And then Arjuna said, drive my chariot. That means like, take charge of my life. That's what that means. Control my life with you. In other words, may you always be in my vision. So, because he's standing up and he can always see what Krishna's doing, which means what? He always has Krishna in mind when he's doing his work. It's a karma yoga, huh? When you're doing your daily life, you should have Krishna, have yourself in mind all the time. That's the whole point. Ishvara, or yourself, is your driving your life. It means the Dharma field. Ishvara is what driving your life. It's
Yes.
Understand.
Not only that, but at the end, if I correctly remember, he says, after teaching all these 18 chapters, he says, Yathechasi tatha kuru. Now do whatever you want.
Yeah, now do what you want.
Choose to do.
Yeah, now it's up to you.
Yes.
Well, that's absolutely right. So, but you can't read your way to know the teaching. That's our point. The reason is because if you're reading your way, if you're trying to read your way to moksha, then what you're saying is you don't know what moksha is. Isn't it? I mean, if you know what moksha is, you won't be reading about it.
Yeah.
Now, we're very clear about what moksha is. Moksha is discriminating satya from mithya. That's all it is. It's a perfect discrimination between satya and mithya. So you never what? You never confuse satya and mithya. Because of superimposition, we call it adhyaropa, because of superimposition, the self jumps over the line and identifies with stuff down here, with the body, mind, intellect, feelings, and so forth, circumstances and situations. And the jiva projects selfness on stuff down here also. So there's a big confusion. There's a huge confusion about who I am and what my equipment is. I can't discriminate because myself permeates my equipment totally. That's the problem. Self is all pervasive. Vishnu means all pervasive. They've turned it into a god in India. In fact, I'm a Vaishnava. That's my Ishta and my favorite deity. But the self permeates every object in existence. In fact, every object in existence is the self. Every single object is the self, but what? But the self is not every object in existence. The self is real. Now, moksha is knowing that fact and therefore not making the confusion, right, between the two. That's called freedom. If there's no identification of the self with anything here, then the self is free. Now, how are you going to do that unless if you don't know that, then you need to be told what it is. That's why you need to be taught in the beginning. Once it's clear what that is, then you're on your own. Then we turn you, now I've told you what it is, okay, now it's up to you. You do whatever you can say, no, that's too hard for me, and bag it. A lot of people do that, huh? And they find out, when they understand it's going to be a lot of work, or what they think is a lot of work. Their ego gets them off it, and they say, no, I'll do that next lifetime, and they go. Huh? That's their argument. They think it's going to be too much work, but they don't realize that as Vidyaranya says, practicing duality is a lot harder than practicing non-duality. Huh? Trying to live here in this dualistic thing is much harder than practicing what? Than discriminating satya from mithya. So they don't understand that. So then they walk away. There's very few once you hear Vedanta. Once you hear Vedanta, then the logic is so compelling, and because it's a logic that you actually know already. It's something you actually know already. There's no scope for this teaching if you don't know this already. You're just not aware, you just don't know what you know. And so we have to make you aware of what you know. That's the job of the teaching. And once you see it, then you're on board. In fact, people say to me, once I've taught them for a while, I say, well, don't forget who taught you. He says, oh, I knew that all along. Well, if you knew that all along, then why did I have to teach you? I love that. Huh? They just forget totally where they got it, No, you need a guru to get it straight in the beginning, but then you've got to do the work. I mean, I can only clear the karma that's standing in my account. I can't clear the karma that's standing in your account, and you should know that when you get a guru. Now, a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to hang around the guru, and he's going to eat my karma. He's going to clear my karma, so I'll do whatever the guru says because he's clearing my karma. Well, that's total BS. Right?
But that's what's being taught too.
Pardon?
Sometimes that's taught that the guru will clear
yeah.
karma.
No, the guru, absolutely. That's how you keep people small.
Yeah.
That's how you keep people dependent. That's how you make money off people and get things out of people. You tell them you don't know anything. And I'm the only one that knows anything. And if you don't stay with me, then you're screwed spiritually. Because, oh boy, you bet. I mean, there was this, it's just common in the spiritual world. That's how they maintain control over you. So we're happy to get rid of you. We do not. I've got a life. Do I want a whole bunch of people calling me every 5 minutes and coming to my house and knocking on my door? And I mean, one time I came to see me, and we had a nice little satsang on a porch, and then I got a call and I had to run in the neighborhood. I just had to go out and do something. I said, well, just take 5. I'll be back in 10 minutes because it's an important conversation and we'll finish it up in 10 minutes. Don't worry, just sit here. When I came back, the guy's sitting in my bed, meditating. He's sitting in my bed, meditating. I said, what the hell are you doing here? Oh, this Shakti is incredible. I'd like to stay with you. You'd like to stay with me? Excuse me? Excuse me? I get a dog to stay with me. I'm lonely. I'm not lonely. I don't want anybody, huh? You understand? These people, these girls, they're so needy. If you look at them, you see how needy they are, how dependent they are on their devotees. And so they have to have all kinds of bullshit tricks to keep you sitting there. You have to propagate a whole lot of lies. And the devotees aren't smart enough to figure it out. There's people that stay with abusive gurus for 10, 20, 30 years. And they still suck that silly notion. And the only reason is because they haven't matured. That no reasonable adult would do this, but inside, psychologically, they're still like children. And the guru is either a big mother or a big father, usually. The big mother smothers them with love and keeps them close. The big father, like with authority and discipline, keeps them in line. That's it. So no, you definitely need a guru for this. That's part of the package. And anyway. Okay, good. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratmeti Murti Beda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmiham Om Shri Krishna Govinda. Right. Let's see where we are here. Okay, we did 4 types of thinking. The personality types, this is on top of page 3, 2 guna-based personality types. That's based upon the Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, the guna teaching. The people with a predominance of Sattva follow Dharma, have pleasant personalities, love knowledge, and are highly qualified for moksha. And I call them classy, high-minded people. They think of other people first. They're not greedy people. The other one are the self-centered people. That's your normal people who just operate on the basis of their fears and desires. They're not necessarily bad people. They're just only basically interested in themselves. They need karma yoga to get them out of their self-obsessions. Karma yoga makes you aware of your environment and moves you from a subjective orientation to an objective orientation. That seems strange, but to understand and to discriminate, you need to have objectivity. You need to be objective. Whereas immature people, they're not objective. Everything is about them. It's all about me, what I want, and what I don't want. And that's a formula for misery, basically. Because, as we said, Ishwar doesn't care what you want, what you don't want. Ishwar does not care. Ishwar has to take care of the needs of the total, and insofar as what you want, offerings that you make to the Dharma field are in harmony with the Ishwar's will or desire or needs, then you will get what you want, and if not, not. So you need to be mindful of the needs of your environment. The environment means your wife and your kids and your job and your house and your dog and your cat. That's all Ishwara is. Nobody ever saw an Ishwara. Okay? Nobody ever saw creation. Nobody ever saw God. You see it all the time in the form of what? Life. Whatever's right in front of you is Ishwara. And the reason things are there in front of you is because that Ishwara wants something from you. You've been put here by Ishwara for a reason, and that is to contribute something to the creation. You have been given these talents and abilities, whatever they are, and your job is to use those talents and abilities given by Ishwara to what? To serve Ishwara in the form of your friends, your family, your karma, whatever's in front of you. It's a very simple, natural, straightforward relationship. But when you don't take Ishwara into account, it means you're what? You're self-centered. That's what he's talking about here, in that way. Those people are rajasic, tamasic, with a little bit of sattva, because they generally don't break the rules, but they do suffer. They generally follow the rules, but they do suffer a lot. Whereas the high-minded types don't suffer much at all, because they're mindful of Ishwara. So they're polite and friendly, and they think of other people. Now, and then what? When there's strong rajas and strong tamas, then you get your sociopaths and your psychopaths. Those are people you need to look out for. And when you come across one of those, you often need to stand and fight. That's what Krishna's telling Arjuna. He says, here your karma, you're faced with this karma, you got a demon over there. That Duryodhana is a demon. He's a bad guy. He knows what's right, but what? He does wrong anyway. He's violent. He's that part of yourself. Don't think you're free of that. Duryodhana is that hard part of yourself. The word Duryodhana means hard, uncompromising. Our word durable comes from that, or duration, or obdurate. These are all words that indicate an inflexible, rigid, hard part of yourself. He said that, he said, that you've got to destroy. If you don't take that on and fight with that, then you're not going to get anywhere spiritually. You cannot avoid that. You cannot ignore that. You only have to confront that. Arjuna doesn't want to do that because he knows what? He knows that there's going to be bloodshed. It means what? It's going to be painful. And dealing with that part of yourself is very painful because it contradicts your own good opinion of yourself. You think you're very wonderful. You think you're just very spiritual and very wonderful. And you don't want to look at that part of you, that selfish, really selfish, hard, uncompromising, violent part of yourself. Don't think you're non-violent because you don't eat, meat. Everybody's got violence in them. Everybody thinks bad thoughts and says bad words that hurt others and hurt themselves. Everybody's got that in them. Don't pretend that you don't. Anyway, so when the Rajas and Tamas gets too you look at Donald Trump. He's not really a psychopath. He's one of these. He's just an incredibly Rajasic, Tamasic person. He'll cut a few corners, but not too much. He's not out murdering people. He's actually not probably. He definitely is not out murdering people. He's manipulating people. He's got it, and so forth and so on. He's cheating people. He's lying, so forth and so on. But he's not out murdering people. He hasn't crossed the line yet, to where he's actively destroying people. He tries to destroy them cleverly with words and lies and that sort of thing, to get what he wants. But then, as those Rajasic, Tamasic vasanas grow and grow and grow, then your personality gradually shifts to this, what are called Rakshasas. Ravana. If you know the story of Ram and Ravana. Great story. Absolutely excellent demon. Ravana he's the demon's demon. It's a really great story. Anyway, so that's what we're just talking about here. Rajas and Tamas. And Ravana had sattva too, because Ravana he'd done penance to Shiva. He was a bhakta, and he'd done so much spiritual practice that he had a lot of power and got a boon from Shiva. So he was a very intelligent guy, but he was a bad guy. Anyway, the point is, you're not your personality. That's all guna driven. You're the self. That's the point. Okay. So now, the guna is in the primary instrument. Primary instrument means your mind, your subtle body. First topic: the terrible twins. That's what Sundari calls them. My wife calls them terrible twins. You know how boys, you got a pair of twin boys, and they're like 6 years old or 5 years old. They're little demons. They really need a good, box upside the ears, and they just looking for trouble. My brother and I were like that. We just made trouble for everybody in the neighborhood. We were like torturing, pulling the wings off butterflies and roasting cats, and just mean. Yeah. So these two energies, this Rajas and Tamas, you get them together. You always find them together. And Rajas is called Matsarya Bhava. Matsarya Bhava it's called. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. That's how it talks about it. Matsarya means comparing and competing. Aren't you always evaluating yourself with reference to somebody or something else? Or with reference. Okay, if you need to compare, then compare yourself to what you were before and improve yourself. That's fair enough, up to a point. But that can kill you too, because you can always compare yourself to some ideal and try to live up to an ideal and become a perfect person. And that's never going to work. Ever. So comparing your... this is why in Vedanta we're not into like being pure and perfect. That's not our goal. No way. Because what are you doing? You're creating what? You're creating a problem for yourself every time you try to perfect the jiva. What we're saying is, if you get this knowledge, the knowledge will take care of the impurities and your personality will automatically improve. But it won't be as a result of your work on it. The personality will what? Will grow on the basis of what you know. In other words, you'll know not to involve yourself with foolish things here. You'll have a spirit of renunciation, and you won't fall into those traps that you fell into before, and slowly your agitation and your suffering will go away. But not because you're trying to make it go away, but because you're clinging to the truth, because you know the truth. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, there's no purifier like self-knowledge. He said karma yoga is good, but then he says later, there's nothing will purify you like self-knowledge. That's quick and immediate. That keeps you out of trouble. Right there. Because if you know you're okay, you're not tempted to try to like get something or do something you think is going to make you better. People say, well, I know who I am, you know, but they don't know quite what that means. It means there's nothing that can make you better, and there's nothing that can make you worse. That's what we mean. You can't add something to yourself that will make you improve you, and you can't subtract something from yourself that will unimprove you. Om Purnamida Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. You're already perfect. If you subtract something from it, you're still perfect. If you add something to that, you're still perfect. It's the mathematics of Atman. You could say the mathematics of Atman. You can change this, you can take it away, or you can add it back to this, but you're always going to be the same. So you're always perfect, you're always whole, you're always complete. Now when you know that, then these vasanas that come up, these temptations and these angers and stuff, when they come up, they're not a problem. Dealing with those are not a problem. Why? I'm okay. I don't need that. That's all. I don't need that. I can do without that. You stand in awareness and you say, hey, what am I going to gain here? By breaking the rules, what will I gain? So you don't break the rules. Maybe you do a little bit here and there, but so what? You know you're perfect. That's all mitya, then, you know. Even when you find yourself old tendencies operating here that are not particularly beautiful, that's okay too. Why? Because you know it's all mitya. So you don't reinforce those tendencies. They just play out slowly. So this is not about self-improvement. This is about self-knowledge. And most of us are in this because we want to improve ourselves. So you got a big problem in the spiritual world. Because I have a self-judgment that I have not examined. And that self-judgment is what? There's something wrong with me. Well, where's the evidence there's something wrong with you? You know, that's what we say. Okay, supply me with some evidence that there's something wrong with you. And when you look into it, you can never find any evidence. All of the evidence that you have can be resolved back into the perfect self that you are. Any thought that you have about yourself or the world, any thought, always resolves back to consciousness. Why? It's very simple. You can't have a thought without consciousness. You can't have knowledge without consciousness, can you? Knowledge is inert. The thought is inert. That thought is only known because you, consciousness, are present. You're always free of that thought. Huh? So, any judgment that you make, positive or negative, is just a thought that doesn't have anything to do with you at all. You know, it's very difficult. I understand how difficult Vedanta is because you've been told that there's something wrong with you. You've been criticized and judged endlessly by the world. Usually starting with your mom and your pop. They're usually the ones who started making these judgments about you. You're too this and you're too that, and you did this and you did that, and blah, 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 blah. And slowly, so you don't know that when you're a baby, do you? When you're little, you don't know there's anything wrong with you. You're told something's wrong with you. And you're forced to believe it. If you want to survive, you have to believe what your parents say. So, and you don't know that there's something right with you. You don't know there's something wrong with you. You don't know there's something right with you either. So you can't really argue with them. So when they say there's something wrong with you, that goes in. That becomes part of your self-judgment. And then you get self-critical, and you're always criticizing yourself for something, and then that leaks out, then you start seeing the perfection in others, then you start criticizing other people. All based upon a self-judgment that doesn't hold up when you actually analyze it. So we're saying, well, there's a very simple way to deal with this. Just examine to see whether the basic motivator for your actions is based upon an incorrect, unfair evaluation of yourself as a human being. And if it is unfair and unreasonable, then you don't have to believe it. Then your job is what? Not believing what you think about yourself. Do you believe what you think about yourself? Well, you better have a pretty good thought about yourself, because if you believe a negative thought about yourself, you're just, what are you doing? You're just perpetuating your misery. That's all. I'm not smart enough. I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not clever enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not. Huh? Always feeling this, that there's something missing, something wrong with yourself. There's nothing wrong with yourself. That's our message here. You just got the wrong self. That's all. You don't have a problem. You are the problem. I don't have a problem. I am the problem. I've mistaken myself to be this equipment. I've mistaken the driver for the equipment. You don't have any doubt that you're your automobile, do you? You know you're the driver of your automobile. But human beings think they're their automobile, their equipment. So when a bad feeling comes up, they think that's me, and when a bad thought comes up, they think that's me. And when good thoughts come up, they think they're wonderful. And when good feelings come up, they think they're wonderful. No, you're not wonderful because you have wonderful thoughts, and you're not miserable because you have miserable thoughts. You're that because of which those feelings and thoughts are known. That's all. It's a simple thing. It's not complicated. So, this whole idea of comparing yourself and judging yourself is what he's talking about here. This is duality. Evaluating yourself with a standard, a reference to something else, rather than with reference to who you really are. And this duality, now this is an interesting thing here. This could be a very misleading statement, because it's under the topic of duality. It says, two orders of the apparent reality. You could think that this self, this not self, is one side of the dualistic thing, and that the self is another. Why is this not a duality? Satya and Mithya, why is it not a duality?
Because you said yesterday, cause and effect.
Yeah, cause and effect, or two orders. Two orders are cause and effect, that's correct. There's no contradiction between the cause and the effect. There's no contradiction. They're in different orders of the reality of the self. So this doesn't mean there's duality, although it seems as if it is duality. All duality takes place in here, in the Mithya world. That's where the duality takes place. That is, comparing yourself, judging yourself with other objects, and with reference to your own concepts here. You're making evaluations that don't need to be made. They're a waste of time. Fear and desire. That means what? This is the terrible twins. A fear is a negative desire, and a desire is a positive fear. Wherever you have one, you have the other. Whenever you want something, there's something you don't want. Always. That's all in the Mithya, understand? You don't want to discriminate between the two, does it? Because you find one where you have it. Fear is desire, and desire is fear. Same idea. I said wired but tired. We discussed that yesterday. How you can both be tamasic and rajasic at the same time. And working against yourself. Did you ever feel that you're sabotaging yourself? That I'm my own worst enemy? Donald Trump, there's a good example there. There's a perfect example of Rajas and Tamas in action. This guy, he thinks he's getting somewhere, and then whatever he does, it works against him. So he's always angry and always frustrated. He's constantly angry, and he can't understand why. He thinks if the world behaves the way he wants it to behave, then he won't be angry. He's right, but the problem is the world isn't going to behave according to how he wants it. So his problem is what? He's just stupid. he just can't connect. He just can't connect his fears and his desires together. He just can't work it out. So he's always angry and frustrated. Zero sum, the whole idea of zero sum, the upside and downside, that's all duality. And finally, do you care what people think? That's related to the comparison and competition. If you care what people think, you got a big problem. I'm only sitting here because I don't give a damn what you think. If I cared what you think, I'd be a mess. Honestly. You can like me or not like me and say whatever you want. I just do my job, and that's it. And, if you like it, fine. If you don't like it, fine. Because it's totally useless to care, and it includes your wife and your kids and all that sort of thing. It doesn't mean you're hard and cold and mean or anything like that. It just means you don't open yourself up to evaluation by someone else. Nobody else can tell you who you are. But I get, you know, and people actually come to me and say, I want you to bust my ego. They want me to bust their ego. Now, normal teachers would love that. Huh? That's a big thing in the spiritual world. You won't, the guru would say, you won't bust your ego, so I'll do it for you. That's a demonic guru. That's ridiculous. It's absurd when you think about it. You've got to bust your own ego. There's no one else going to do this for you. They can criticize you, they can injure you and all that sort of thing, but it's not going to do you one bit good. You're the one that's got to do it. And we're giving you the tools. If you've got an ego problem, if you've got a problem, and we're giving you the tools to take care of your problem. But nobody else can do this for you. So you should not care what the guru thinks of you, or the guru shouldn't care what you think of him. So just listen and see what's there, and then apply the knowledge. That's all we're talking about here. So this is why Vedanta is not very popular. It requires you to be an adult. It requires you to be mature. But yes, sir.
I get confused here because I want to do what Ishvara wants me to do and go along with Ishvara all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't want to care what people think specifically. So and that happens a lot in life.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how to, I guess, see that properly. Understand that. Like if someone's telling me, you know,
Oh, I see. You think, well, because...
Is that Ishvara telling me I'm a jerk? Maybe
maybe you are a jerk, and maybe that's useful, but that does, what we're saying here, that doesn't mean you shouldn't listen to what people say, but you should think about whether or not it's true and whether it's useful. I mean, obviously, you know, everything you get comes from outside, at least until you understand who you are. When you understand who you are, there's no outside or inside. You're totally the boss. That's what moksha means. That means you cannot tell me there's something wrong with me. You cannot do that. That's impossible. I'm the only one that can do that, because I'm the boss. But, you know, in the beginning stages, you have to be very careful, because people are always, the power element in relationships is an extremely strong element. Particularly like in personal relationships, with family relationships, there's all kinds of power struggles going on there. You know. So you have to sit back and think about it, not immediately accept that judgment, and see whether it's reasonable or not. And then you can, in that case, you can say that Ishvara is teaching me, and I should listen, but you shouldn't immediately accept a judgment or a statement by somebody. But we're saying that when you know who you are, you're completely immune to the opinions of other people. Now, why is a person telling you this? There's some people who are self-described, do-gooders. They think they know more about you than you know about you, and they're happy to tell you what you need to know, whether you want to know or not. Dave and I were in India one time, and we were staying at this hotel, and there was a pair of people there, an Italian psychic and a Peruvian boyfriend, and they were looking for some people to enlighten. And I saw them coming a mile away. So I've been in this thing for a long time. So I just saw them coming, and they immediately tried to ingratiate themselves with me, but I was just polite that I completely had no interest in them at all. I just moved on. That really irritated them, because they knew I really must have had some serious problems, because I rejected them. There must be something wrong with me. I was just smart. Just didn't want to deal with those people. Then one day Dave and I are sitting there having a conversation, and the fellow comes over and taps him on the shoulder and said, well, can I speak with you for a minute? So we went over, Dave's an accommodating guy, and he goes over, he says, yeah, sure, sits down. And that fellow says, my friend, the Peruvian, the Italian psychic didn't speak English, but he spoke English. He says, my friend here says that you're blocked.
I had my leg up. And never hurt my leg.
David been doing some in the gym. He'd been exercising, and he injured his hamstring, so he was limping a little bit. No, it's just a sports injury. That's all. But what she saw in the sports injury, and then he had his leg up, she thought he must really be screwed up psychologically or something wrong with him. She's gonna fix him. See. And Dave said, "Oh, well, yeah, well, so what do you think it is?" He said, well, you don't. The problem is, you see, you don't have a spiritual path. Like, you can see where this is going. And he said, "Oh yeah, I do have a spiritual path." And I said, "What's that, Vedanta?" And then they said, "And that's my guru over there." He said, "He's really blocked." Yeah, everybody's out there trying to get the edge in the spiritual world. They think you can see deeply into everybody else and all their stupid problems, But that's a huge problem, And so you shouldn't listen. Yeah, I mean, sometimes somebody comes along and says something reasonable or intelligent. You can tell when it's sensible, and you can take it on board or not. But you got to be very careful here, because people, honestly, there's more injury done under the aegis of what do they say? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Oh yes, they're all well-meaning, all these do-gooders, but look out. So that's the idea here.